Good morning, I'm Diane Macedo. Thanks for streaming with us. The Republican National Convention is kicking off today to officially name President Trump as the Republican Party's nominee. Now, the theme of the convention is honoring the great American story. A campaign official says it will highlight the promise and greatness of America and Trump's plans for the future. Tonight's theme is Land of Promise. And in a few minutes, delegates from all 50 states will begin the roll call to officially nominate the president. Joining us with more is Yvette Simpson, CEO of Democracy for America, Alex Castellanos, co-founder of Purple Strategies, and ABC's Rachel Scott, who's on the ground in Charlotte. Rachel, I'll start with you. Talk to me a little bit about what's happening today, because we saw a lot of back and forth with this convention. It was originally supposed to be in Charlotte in person, then Jacksonville in person. Now it's kind of a pared down in-person version, somewhat in Charlotte. What can we expect?
Diane, well, really a sense of disappointment from the chairwoman herself, Ronna McDaniel, today, saying that she wished they could have held this convention like they hoped. This is not what they expected, and it serves as a sharp contrast to what we saw from the Democrats last week. Right now, 336 delegates are inside this convention center behind me, ready to nominate the president for re-election. But this area is not packed with Republicans waiting to get inside. It's not lined with protesters. Some businesses, in fact, are even closed just outside of these gates. Instead, those delegates were met with temperature checks and health screenings. Inside of their goodie bags are face masks. And inside of that convention center, I took a walk through. There are signs that are encouraging them to keep 6 feet social distance, right? So this is totally different than what they had imagined. But still, the president trying to bring an element of surprise. Sources tell us that both he and the vice president will be surprising these delegates here today. And that basically wraps up much of the official business here in Charlotte. All eyes then will be on Washington, where, of course, the president will deliver that speech from the White House accepting his party's nomination. Diane.
Yvette, we're going to see this roll call happen. The president will officially get nominated, assume all goes to plan, of course. Why not do this during prime time the way the Democrats did?
I don't know. I mean, that was the question I had. I think part of it is because it isn't the big production that he expected. I don't think he wants the attention on that. It's also really unusual that he's doing the roll call on Monday when he accepts the party's nomination on Thursday. So you've got a big gap of time between when the vote happens and when he actually accepts, which I think is kind of unusual. One of the things I'm noticing, though, from the crowd that's there is very, laid back adherence to rules, not much social distancing. I'm seeing some people in masks, some people with their masks down, some people holding them in their hand. So it'll be interesting to see whether this was worth it for them to actually have this one moment where you've got a few people representing the party together. Also, one more thing, Diane, I think the fact that they abandoned the opportunity to have a platform from these delegates and instead to adopt the president's platform, I think that this is the opportunity for those delegates to make their mark, to put their stamp on the future 4 years of the administration if they win. And the fact that that was eliminated last minute is also a little confusing.
Alex, what do you make of that move? And in general, how different do you think this event's going to be from what we saw from the Democrats last week?
Well, I think it's going to be a very different convention. This is going to be a little closer to the old school convention, just the kind of Miller Lite version of it. I think the Democrats put on more of a show, had a little more Hollywood, a little bit more music, singing and dancing, and they got a little more of America involved in their convention. This is going to be more political. This is going to be a bunch of politicians standing up and speaking. And of course, the Republicans have something the Democrats didn't have. They have the most eyeball-grabbing, attention-getting figure, not only in American politics, but maybe in the world, Donald Trump. And he's going to be speaking every night.
And Rachel, in addition to hearing from political leaders and to hearing from several members of the Trump family, we will also be hearing from people who are not famous, or at least weren't until very recently. Talk to me a little bit about that real people element of the speaker lineup.
Yeah, they're real people, real American people, as the campaign says, that will be speaking today. And some of them are also some controversial figures now, as we have this moment of racial reckoning in our history. One is that St. Louis couple who brought out their rifles as Black Lives Matter protesters peacefully marched through their community. They are on the list to speak. And it's interesting because campaign officials, the president himself, says the theme is optimism for this week, that they are going to try try and reframe the conversation. But that serves as a stark contrast to what we have been hearing from the president in the days leading up to this convention. Just last week, when he was counter-programming the Democratic National Convention, he painted a very dark picture about what things would look like under a Biden administration, saying that he would bring chaos and madness to the White House, that the president said that he's the only one standing in between anarchy and the American dream. And he said that if Biden is elected, the streets would be filled with blood, especially in places like Chicago, and that you could cross off the economy off of your list of things that you prioritize. And so the president is going to try and reframe the conversation. All questions here on whether or not he can keep that theme of optimism and an upbeat tone and really make the turn from what we have been hearing from him in the last several days, Diane.
And Yvette, you brought up the fact that the delegates are just adopting the president's platform. Do you think that's an attempt to show unity on behalf of the Republican Party? And how does that message come across?
You know, I don't know. It's really unusual when you think about we are a representative democracy. These delegates, you know, they represent real people around the country, which is why it's such a big deal in these parties to have an opportunity for those folks to say, here's what's happening where I am, and here's the change we need to see. Here's what's going well, and here's what's not. I think it's just more of the fact that the president's running the show. It's the Trump show, and he doesn't want anything interfering with that, and the party's not going to disrupt that, which is why I think, you know, one of the downsides of this convention is you're not going to see a lot of party leaders here. You're not going to see a lot of folks who are heralded in the party. They're not showing up. And as Rachel reflected, some of the real American people that you're seeing have been people who are disgraced, not people that people rally around like the St. Louis couple or the young man from Cove Cath who interacted with the elder Native American in D.C. And so it will be a very different, it is the Trump show is the short answer. And it'll be interesting to see if that pays off. If people who are Republicans around the country feel connected to this process or feel connected to the platform that Donald Trump has put forward.
Now, Alex, one of the keys last time around was this idea that many people out there don't have a voice, and Trump said, I am your voice. I will be your voice. How much of that messaging do you think we'll hear this time around?
Well, I think you're going to hear a lot of that, and you're going to hear a lot of that about Joe Biden and the Democrats, that they're not listening to the American people, that they're just offering more of the same. The reason we got Donald Trump as president is because the establishment in Washington had failed for decades and decades, and they have learned nothing since. So you're going to hear that, and you're not going to hear from disgraced people. You're going to hear from some Americans who've had to stand up and defend their homes from riots in the streets. You're going to hear from kids who did nothing wrong but were silenced by a democratic establishment that believes, well, wait a minute, we can't allow those folks to speak because they'll expose the failure that the Democratic Party's become. So I think you're going to hear a very different view. I think that the key point for this convention is that the American people are very angry right now on all sides. And anybody who sticks their head out of the foxhole, who gets in the spotlight, well, the American people are going to be angry at them. And we saw some of that in the Democratic convention. The polls have begun to move a little bit in Donald Trump's direction. This week, Donald Trump wants the convention to be about him. He wants to be in the spotlight again. That may not be the best move. It may be better to put Joe Biden and the Democrats on trial and say, look what's happening in our cities, riots in the streets. These are the people who wrecked our economy. I'm the guy who brought it back. If he can force the choice and get off stage, it'll be a successful week for Donald Trump.
And Rachel, I know delegates there will also be voting on several resolutions, things like voting against cancel culture. What do these resolutions do? What do they mean? And what do we know about what's planned on that front?
Yeah, the cancel culture is coming right here to the convention, and one of those resolutions is to preserve history, to protect Christopher Columbus, as it says. And we have seen this play out over the last couple of months as we have seen protesters race to tear down monuments and statues that they have found offensive. We have seen the president step up and try to protect them. That is echoed in the resolutions here. And so much of this is reflective of what the president says himself. Even on there is drain the swamp, right? But the president has been in office for now 4 years, and so he's going to have a record to defend. There are questions, though, about how the racial tension will be addressed in these conventions as the uproar continues to ripple across the nation, Diane.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.